Everybody, Chinte here with SS Multimedia, and today we're going to be learning how to use fractions. Our objective is to use fraction strips and number lines to compare fractions. So what does this mean? So fraction strips and number lines, we're going to be using them to compare certain fractions. Well, you're probably thinking, oh, well I know there's like 1/4 and then there's also like 2/4. Well, I clearly know that 2/4 is bigger because 2 is greater than 1. Well, these fractions are called like fractions because they both have the same denominator. But what happens when you have 1/4 plus 3/6? How do we do that? Well, we're going to be using fraction strips and number lines to figure out how. So let's get started. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be comparing 2/4, 3/8, and 1/2, which is the greatest and which is the least. I promise you this is easier than it looks. So first up, we're going to be looking at the fraction strip. So we're going to be using the fraction strip to compare these, like I said earlier. So let's look at 2/4. We see 1/2 right here, 1/3, 1/4, 1/6, 1/8. So we know that 2/4 is part of the fourths. So since there's 2 of them, I'm going to shade in 2. And the reason it's set up like this is because in the end, when you have 2 halves, 3/3, 4/4, 6/6, and 8/8, they all end up equaling 1. So that's why we can set them up like this and then split them into their specific proportions to figure out and compare. So we know that 2/4 right here is right there. So now we're going to do 3/8. So since the 8s are down here, we can shade in 3, 1, 2, 3, and we get 3/8. This shows us that 3/8 is slightly smaller than 2/4, so we can see that that one's going to be smaller. And then finally, we have 1/2 right here. 1/2. Well, there's halves up here, so we can just shade in one of these, and we can compare them to the rest. So we can clearly see that 3/8 is the smallest, so the least is going to be 3/8. But then 2/4 and 1/2 look around the same. So they're actually equivalent fractions, which means that they're equal. So 1/2 and 2/4, like we showed right here, are actually equal. So 1/2 and 2/4 are the greatest fractions. Another way we could show this is using a number line. We know that we have 2/4, 2/4, 3/8, and 1/2. So how do we do this? Well, let's start with 2/4. So again, we're going to look back at equivalent fractions and we're going to figure this out. So we see that this is 0 and that this is 1/4, but I don't see 2/4. Well, we can look at this and see that the distance from 1/4 to 0 is around the same as the distance from 1/4 to 1/2. So we know that now that we know that the distance is around the same, and also that 1/4 plus 1/4 equals 2/4, and that 2/4 and 1/2 are equivalent, we can say that this is the same as 1/2. So we know that 2/4 is right there. Now let's look at 3/8. So we know that this is 1/8, but then we also know that this is 1/4. But right here we see 3/8, so we can say that this is where 3/8 is. And then finally, we're going to be looking at 1/2. Well, 1/2 is clearly shown right here, so we can just hop over here and see that 2/4 and 1/2 are the same. So just like we saw over here, 3/4 is the smallest and 2/4 and 1/2 are the greatest, we saw right here. Since 3/8 is behind both of these, it shows that it's smaller. 3/8 is the smallest fraction, and these two are the greatest. Now, we're going to be doing some problems. Feel free to pause this video and try them out yourself. I'll be also doing them, so then you can check your solutions. So it shows right here to compare the fractions and write them down in order of least to greatest. That means that we're going to have to write them down from smallest to biggest. So let's get started. Here we have 1/2, 2/6, and 3/8. Well, we can use this fraction strip right here, and we can trade them in to show 1/2, 2/6, and 3/8. Well, right here is 1/2, so we can easily shade in 1/2 like we did earlier. But now we have a different fraction, 2/6. So we see the thirds, fourths, sixths. So here we can just shade in 2/6, 1, 2, and we can see 2/6 right here. 2/6 is supposed to be equivalent to 1/3. So now we can look at 3/8. 3/8, like we showed earlier, is going to be in the eighths pile, and we're going to be shading in 3 of them. So here we can see that 3/8 is bigger than 2/6. And we also see that 1/2 is bigger than 3/8. So that means 2/6 is the smallest fraction, 3/8 is in the middle, and 1/2 is the largest fraction. So that's how we can use fraction strips to show this. So next up we have 3/4, 4/6, and 2/3. Well, we're going to shade these in again. So let me do 3/4 first. So we see the fourths are right here. So I'm going to shade in 3 because we have 3/4. 1, 2, and then 3. And now we're going to be doing 4/6. So let's look at that. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we can see that 4/6 is slightly smaller than 3/4, which is okay. And now we're going to be doing 2/3. So we're going to go 1, 2. So 2/3 and 4/6 are nearly the same. So since I didn't draw this out properly, we can say that 2/3 and 4/6 are the same in reality. So let's write this from least to greatest now. Since 4/6 and 2/3 are actually the same, it doesn't matter if you write 2/3 first or 4/6. So we know that those two are equal and they're also the smallest. And then we know that 3/4 is the largest, so we can write that 2/3, 4/6, and 3/4. So now let's move on to our next one. Our next one is 5/8, 3/6, and 1/3. So let's shade in 5/8 first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5/8. And now we're going to be shading in 3/6. 1, 2, 3. So we can see right here, looking at the number line, that 1/2, 2/4, 3/6, and 4/8 are actually equivalent. It's good to keep that in mind because as you get more experience, you're going to start remembering these, and it'll be easier for you to do them without drawing out the whole fraction strip. So anyways, let's do 1/3 now. 1/3. 1/3, right there. So here we can see that 5/8 is actually the largest out of all of them. So we can write 5/8 as last. And then we can also see that 1/3 is the smallest of them all. So we can go 1/3, and then 3/6 because it's the next largest, and then finally 5/8 because it is the largest of them all. Let's do our next problem now. Now we're going to do our next problem. So we see that there's 7/8, 4/4, and 3/6. Well, that's no problem. Let's just shade them in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's nearly 1, but not quite. We still have one more 8 to go. Now we're going to do 4/4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And since this is the whole bar, and we know that the whole bar equals 1, 4/4 is equal to 1. So that's going to be the greatest value we can have so far in this number strip. And then we're going to be shading in 3/6. 1, 2, 3. If we look at them, we can clearly see that 3/6 is far behind them and nowhere close. So we can safely say 3/6 is going to be the smallest. But then, if we look at these, you can see that 7/8 is slightly smaller than 4/4, so we can say 7/8 is the second smallest. And then, since 4/4 is our last one, we can say that that's our largest. So now I'm going to erase these, and then we're going to be doing our final problem for the number strips. Alright, so here we have 1/6, 1/8, and 1/2. So let's fill these in. Since all of them have 1 in their numerator and they're all unit fractions, we can just shade in one block for each one. So 1/6, there's 1. 1/8, there's 1. And then 1/2, there's 1. So we all see that 1/8 is the smallest, and then it's 1/6, and then 1/2. So we can write that down in order. 1/8, 1/6, and then 1/2. So that's how you do it with the fraction strip. As you get along, you won't need to do this, and you'll start remembering them. but it's good to use this for practice as we start. Now we're going to be doing the number line. So we're going to be inserting a greater than, less than, or equal to symbol. If you don't know what that is, the greater than symbol is like this, because if I have 4 right here and I have 3, we can remember that the greater than symbol always wants to eat the greater one. Like that, we can pretend it's an alligator. See? And then if it's a less than symbol, we can do it like this and write it out like that. See, it's turning its back to the 3 because it's not big enough. Then the equal to symbol looks like this. It shows that the 4 is equal to 4. So now that you know what all the signs are, we can start and we can figure out which fractions are equal to, less than, or greater to each other. Alright, first up we have 1/8 and 1/4. Well, we can look at the number line. We see that 1/8 is right there. But where's 1/4? Well, 1/8, 1/4. 1/4 is slightly ahead, so that shows us that 1/4 is greater than 1/8. So since 1/4 is greater than, but it's written the other way, we know that the back has to turn the 8, and we can just write it like that. It's going to go eat the 1/4, and it's going to leave the 1/8 alone. So now, let's work on our next one. We have 3/8 and 1/4. So, let's look at it like this. 1/8, 1/4, and then we have 3/8 right there. So now we have to figure out where 1/4 is, and since it's already there from the last problem, we can see that 3/8 is slightly ahead of 1/4, so 3/8 is greater than 1/4. And see, there's like the little teeth, so the greater than sign is going to go eat the 3/8 since it's larger. And now we're going to be looking at this one. We have 5/8 and 2/4. Well, let's look at it like this. We see 1/8, 1/4, but we also know that this is 2/8 as we showed earlier, 3/8, 4/8, well, 1/2, but we know it's 4/8 as well, and then 5/8 right here. So now we have to look at 2/4. 1/4, but then again, we know that 4/8 and 1/2 and then 2/4 are all equal to, so we can write it like that. So we know that these are all equal. So this is where 2/4 is. So since it's 5/8 and 2/4, we know that 5/8 is actually larger than 2/4. So we can draw the greater than sign again, so it will eat the 5/8 instead of the 2/4 since it's greater than. So here's our final problem. We have 1/2 and 6/8. Well, let's look at this. We know that 1/2 is right here, and we also know that 6/8, well, where is it? We see 1/8, 3/8, 5/8, but 6/8 isn't there. But remember, equivalent fractions. So since 6/8 is supposed to be around here, we see 3/4 right there, they're actually equal. You're going to learn how to prove that later on. So we know that this is actually 6/8. So this is where 6/8 is, and that's where 1/2 is. There's a pretty big distance, so we can safely say that 6/8 is actually greater than, and then 1/2 is smaller than 6/8. That's the end of the video, and I hope that you enjoyed it and that you understand how to use fractions now.